All righty. Welcome back, race fans. We're here to talk strategy and answer questions about your fantasy lineups ahead of the final race of the season, the Abu Dhabi GP. For most of us that have been F1 fans for more than a few years, we will likely always remember Abu Dhabi as the location where Lewis Hamilton was robbed of his 8th world title. And I don't know about y'all, but I'm getting increasingly nervous that the same thing might happen to McLaren this weekend. With only a 21-point lead over Ferrari, it will most certainly be a tense race. Welcome to the last show of the 2024 season. We are watching a Formula One race this weekend in December. I'm pretty sure that's a first. I could be wrong. It's definitely a first since I've been an F1 fan.
I think it's been like once or twice in recent years where it's been like December 1st or something. This feels wrong. I remember when the season finished mid-October.
Oh, yeah. I think if it was up to Liberty Media, there would be racing all year round and there would be no break anymore. Anyways,
a year.
That's right. Before we get into it, quick introductions. My name is Ross. I'm the founder and CEO of GridRival. With me today, I have Michael Ursinoli, our CTO, Ryan Booth, our Director of Business Operations, and William Laddie, one of our principal software engineers. Reminder to subscribe and join to the channel, although this is the last season for this year. You don't want to miss out on updates when we kick off the season, which will be right around the corner. So make sure you like and join the YouTube channel. Also find us on Discord. If you're not already in the Discord community, we have an active and thriving Discord community. It's a great place to ask questions about strategy, whether you're playing a season-long fantasy game or a daily fantasy picks game. Highly encourage you to find it and join it. And go ahead and get your questions in now. We're going to get into a recap of Qatar, and then we will start getting to player questions for the last race of the year. Quick recap of Qatar: 11 drivers up in value, 8 drivers down with 1 flat. Lots of swings at this event. If everybody's league was like some of the ones that I'm in, Qatar was either a really good race for you or a really terrible race, and there wasn't a ton in between. There's a lot of value fluctuation. Alonso, Gasly, Guan Yu Zhou, Bottas, all up $2 million. There's a weird group of 4 drivers to say that all went up $2 million. And then Gasly leading in points this weekend with 192 fantasy points, beat Max Verstappen by 1. That happens when a driver has a lot of either overtakes and or personal improvement points. And I think Gasly racked up a little bit of both over the weekend. Piastri up 1.2 million. And then you have Magnussen, Verstappen, Albon, Leclerc, Lawson, and Tsunoda up 900K or less. Kick as a team was the winner of the weekend in terms of constructors, up almost the full $3 million that a constructor can move up or down. They went up 2.7 million, and they were the 5th highest in fantasy team points on 123. So Kick was the best of the rest this weekend, something I would have not predicted, but I wish that I did. Ferrari up 1.3. Other than that, nothing super notable in terms of improvements in value on the team side. In terms of decreases, some painful losses for some very specific drivers. Hamilton, Perez, the downward spiral of Perez just, I mean, I think I predicted its end for the last 4 or 5 races, and it just keeps getting worse. Hulkenberg and Colapinto, all 4 of those down $2 million. So quite a bit of value lost at the top and middle of the grid. Norris, Stroll, Sainz, Russell, all down under 1 million. And then the big constructor loser of the weekend was the RB team, down 1.8 million. So exciting race ahead of us coming into Abu Dhabi. Definitely some drivers, I think, on sale with 1 race left to go. Strategy gets very different, right? We are no longer talking about contracts. We're playing a single event. This will be a weekend where probably we see a lot of people ending contracts early, switching team strategy. Alonso had a decent race last week, and he's still in talent driving territory. I have my prediction is a lot of people are going to be running talent driver or Alonso as talent driver this weekend, as the highest priced driver, just $1.2 million out of talent or into talent driver territory. Norris now at 24.5 million. In my opinion, probably a discount coming to the weekend. And I think worth discussing too is Jack Doohan coming in at 6.5 million in last place, a bargain. Is he worth risking. So as we get into the show, get your Q&A in, and we'll start answering questions. Guys, any input on some of the roster that we're looking at going to the weekend?
So Doohan's kind of intriguing. So let's clarify what happened. So Alpine decided that Jack Doohan would step in at a race ahead of time, essentially. He's going to take over Ocon's ride next year. He's going to take it over this weekend. So what we did was we treated it like Ocon had been dropped. So if you had an Ocon contract, it's been dropped, and you were refunded whatever Ocon was worth at the end of the last race. And you are free to take Doohan. There's no cooldown requirement. Doohan, as Ross said, is worth £6.5 million, so he is priced at the bottom. We also are going to consider his average to be 20th place for improvement point purposes. This means that if he finishes 18th or better, he will score at least an improvement point. So if he can be not last, can he be? Who knows? Can he keep it on track? Who knows? Some think that those cars aren't even equal, like Gasly's been getting preferential parts. So there's a lot of maybes, a lot of ifs, but Doohan's an intriguing choice, especially if it frees up money for you to go more McLaren, more Ferrari at the top of your lineup, or Verstappen for that matter.
Yeah, and I don't think it's news to anybody that's watching this show this late in the season. I think this viewership tends to skew towards, more of the diehard players on our application. But one of the things we talk about a lot is sometimes you got to make a contrarian move. We are all picking from the same roster, right? This isn't like fantasy football where we each have a team of 10 athletes and they're all different. And so if you're in the position of fighting for a position, meaning, you're within, I don't know, even 100 points of the person in front of you is a gap that could be closed in a single race if things get a little bit wild. You might consider a wild card play, like a new driver, like Doohan, because to William's point, if he has a great first race, let's say he finished 15th or something, he could rack up a lot of points given his 8-race average as a new driver is 20th. So I think there's a lot of upside. And just as a reminder, when you click on that driver selection panel, if you look at the extended view that looks like this, you will see under every driver something called league adoption. And so you'll be able to look and see what percentage of a driver has been adopted by other players in your league if you're looking to make a little bit of a contrarian move going into the weekend. Any thoughts from Ryan or Michael on Doohan?
I like him at this price. This is a pretty strategic move that we had done. Untested driver car isn't an exact match for Gasly's car. But when you're looking at Doohan versus Albon versus Stroll, like kind of like that price point of drivers, Doohan is a sale. Is like there's you can get, if he finishes the race in anything less than 20th, he should rack up 80 to 90 points for just 6.5 million in spend, which means that you could run Doohan as a cheap driver if you believe he's going to finish the race, and then stack the top drivers or better constructor and try and get the best drivers that you can at the top, and then just anchor it at the bottom with Doohan. So I think that's a strategy that people should be considering this weekend. And Ross touched on it, but I will emphasize on it. You cannot take your team value with you next year.
There is no tomorrow.
There is no tomorrow. Pay drop fees. Put together the best team that you can to score points. And I'll cherry pick. There was a question I saw, like, why does sale matter? It's just about best performers on this last track. Which drivers or cars are suited here? That's like true and not true, right? Is like Lando Norris is 24.5 million. Like if you're trying to put the best grouping of drivers together, like you're better off taking a driver like Norris who's on sale versus a Piastri who just went up, because 9 times out of 10 Norris would outpace Piastri. So like that's a good, that you still want to be looking for, like, with all the team value you have, what is the best team that you could put together? And I think that anchoring it with Doohan at the bottom and taking someone like a Norris who just took a big hit or a Sainz who just took a medium hit helps you put together a better complete team for this last race.
I'll ask the question, those who might be keeping score, Does Norris feel like he owes Piastri any more favors?
No.
Like, I don't know if you all saw what happened at the end of the sprint. Shades of Indy 2002, Norris letting up and letting Piastri win that sprint. Repaying the favor for a swap that had happened earlier in the year.
I don't think McLaren's going to mess around with anything. Just lock down Constructors Championship and go from, like, if they try and do something like that and it backfires, it's like an all-time screw up. So I highly doubt they're going to mess around like that.
If they're in a position to swap first and seconds, like, they're going to win the championship anyway. The only way Ferrari wins the championship involves a lot of points for Ferrari and a very bad day for McLaren. The same goes for Red Bull catching Ferrari. They basically need a 1-2, and Ferrari scoring almost nothing. But they are going to be fighting for it.
Yeah. And I wanted to touch back to Mike's point about, like, money does still matter. I mean, if you think, Leclerc's 4 million more than Lando right now, and at best they're probably even. I actually think Lando is going to be better here, but if you take Lando over Leclerc, that gives you 4 million to put somewhere else on your roster. So it's never just 1-to-1. It's the sum of the parts.
Yeah, well said. How do you guys feel about Alonso as a talent pick this weekend?
Tumultuous.
I want to see practice.
Yeah.
That's my usual cowardly answer. I want to see practice. Like, I think Hulkenberg could have produced as well if he hadn't spun off, if he hadn't had contact. So Hulkenberg is viable as well, and he is $1.5 million cheaper to the idea of trying to maximize points with the budget that you have this week.
I want no part of Alonso. I'm running, well, as of now, Gasly as talent driver. It worked out really well last weekend. I've said a lot of things about Alpine and Gasly all season. 99% of them have been negative. But I'm on the Gasly train. I finally made it there with one race to go.
You're on board.
Finally on board. It worked last weekend and hope it works this weekend. Yeah, I've made amends with Alpine and Gasly.
Yeah, I for the $2 million less, if you have the budget to run Alonso, I'd be running Hulkenberg. It's just, unfortunate outcome last week, but like $2 million price decrease, great point scorer relative to the cost of the driver. One of the safer talent driver picks you could make. So if I have that 15 to 16, 8 million that I'm looking at for a talent driver, I'm leaning Hulkenberg still, more so after the last race. The Hulkenberg's had a really, really great season. Alonso hasn't. So, but again, if you look at your league adoption, I also saw this question: is league adoption based on the last race? No, it's based on about 5 minutes ago. It's relatively up to date. It's relatively live. Go ahead.
I'll make the one devil's case for Alonso. Like, if he seems to have some pace on Friday, his teammate really stinks. So there are some teammate points on the table there. Like, more so than you have with Haas, where Magnussen can somewhat keep pace. And this is probably Kevin Magnussen's last day in his last weekend in Formula One. So I think he's going to try and make the most of it.
Over under penalties for Magnussen, like 2.5.
He's going to get all the penalty points. He's not going to be allowed back after this weekend. He's going to be wrecking ball.
And also, I know we were optimistic on the new guy Jack earlier in the show, but that's also an argument for Gasly. You have to imagine Gasly's going to rack up some teammate points too.
Yeah, as long as they have the reliability. We did see the blown engine in Vegas. I don't know what their situation is overall, but how often do you see somebody blow an engine during a race? Not often. Not, at least not these days.
Very rare.
Like back in the days where it's like one engine per weekend or more than one engine per weekend, it happens all the time.
Oh yeah,
and that's been lost over the years.
I'm excited. I know Ross touched on it. We've seen some sketchy race directing in Abu Dhabi before, and based on what we saw on Sunday, who knows what we're going to see coming up this weekend? Because that was one of the more ridiculous things I've ever seen.
Yeah, it really was.
There's a mirror on. Yeah, we're just going to leave that. Someone going to hit it? Probably not.
Even NASCAR would have put out the yellow.
I have been waiting since 2016 when I was reinvigorated with the Formula One bug for McLaren to win a championship. So I will be throwing things at my television if that is a situation that happens. Let's get to some questions. Floor Killa says, "Hey guys, excited for this finale. Thanks for your help. I have 23.9 million in salary cap. Leclerc, Piastri, Verstappen, Ferrari on my roster, locked out of Hulk and Albon. What do we like?"
I actually think for this show, if people are submitting questions, tell us where you are in your league. If you're 100 points behind, that will help to know. If you're 100 points ahead, if you're just locked into wherever you are and you want to score as many points as possible, that's also a thing too. But like, recommendations will change based on if you're trying to jump somebody, if you're trying to hold a lead, or if you're stuck where you are.
Yeah, because like with 23.9, he needs 2 drivers. The standout to me would be like go bottom of the barrel, go Doohan for 6.5, and then you can get Alonso or Hulkenberg as a talent driver option, and you're leaving a little bit of money on the table, not that much, so you could always because you're locked out of Albon. But I wouldn't suggest going up to Stroll. And I don't think you have enough money for Colapinto, Hulkenberg. You might.
So you're not recommending basing the last race on Stroll?
No, I don't think I've recommended Stroll at any point this season. I've been very consistent on that, and I'm not the biggest Stroll hater either.
Stroll makes no sense with people cheaper than him.
I think you're basically, I think you're basically stuck with Doohan at this point, which could work out for you, and then see how practice goes, like Hulkenberg or Gasly potentially if Alpine's looking good again. Even if Perez looks good, I'm not sure I'd touch him. There's another one who's in the category of this is probably his last weekend in F1.
Yeah. Too risky.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think he's stuck with Doohan no matter what, because even if you went up to Colapinto, that it doesn't get you Hulk or Gasly. You have to go down to Magnussen. So you could do Magnussen Colapinto. That's definitely not a bad driver pairing either. But I think I'd rather go Doohan Hulk.
23.9. 23.9. You could do Colapinto and Checo. You could do Magnussen and Colapinto.
That's
or Bottas.
Yeah.
He's in third place, 100 points from second. So he's got a 100-point gap he's got to make up. And I agree. I think you got to go Contrarian and you got to get Doohan on there and hope that he has a great first showing.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about the car he's in. So the largest gap that I think I've ever seen on our driver selection board is 10 spots between 2 drivers on the same team. Now we happen to have a lot of that right now. You have Alonso separated by 10 spots from Stroll. I don't think I've ever seen 11. You have Verstappen separated by 10 spots from Perez, but you also have Gasly now separated by 10 spots from Doohan. So I think if Doohan, he's in a car, let's just say that like Gasly's at kind of the top of what the Alpine vehicle is capable of. He's halfway towards the top of the field. I think it's very possible that, if Jack Doohan has a good first showing, he could be in the 16, 15, 14th place position. And I think that's the way that you will close a 100-point gap, is to hope that, your person in front of you isn't also using that strategy. Alex Scott, 80.3 in the bank. Need 3 drivers, a constructor. Currently have Piastri, Sainz, and Verstappen. Currently have Piastri and Sainz with Verstappen, Hamilton, and Hulkenberg locked out.
Interesting. 80.3 is actually not that bad. So I would look at you don't have enough top drivers yet. So I would look at Norris, even though you have Piastri, just because of the sale, and you have Sainz. Like I'm not bullish on Russell for this. I think Verstappen is a fair pick as well. But Norris at 24.5 just feels like it makes the most sense. If you go Norris and Ferrari, that gives you 29.7 left to deal with the rest of the 2 drivers, which actually isn't bad.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a different starting opinion? Then I could do some math.
Norris and Verstappen, I think, are clear in a way the 2 most likely race winners here. I would try to have both of them if I could. Yeah. If I could only have one, probably Norris, just so I can spread that 4 million across the rest of the team. But I think definitely have Norris if you have Verstappen on lockdown. Yeah,
Norris is a must-have, and depending on how things look on Friday, either Ferrari or McLaren. Like, we could put all of our eggs in the McLaren basket if we want. Like, McLaren's going for the Constructors' Championship, and McLaren's looking like they can win it.
Mm-hmm.
And if Norris doesn't get the stop-go last week, then he has a lot more points last week. Like, I trust those guys. Ferrari historically has done silly things.
Well, I think Ferrari might do some silly things on purpose. If there's a strategy that you can take that's going to be one of those either race winning strategies or maybe screws your entire race. I mean, Ferrari has points to make up. Like, they might want to do that. If they stay on the same strategy as McLaren and just finish behind them or with them, that doesn't do them any good. So I do think Ferrari might have a higher ceiling potentially. Definitely a much lower floor. McLaren's floor is much higher than Ferrari's is right here because Ferrari will take chances if they have to.
McLaren just has to not screw up. Like, third and fourth is perfectly fine for McLaren, and they win the title.
Yeah. And I think also going all eggs in one basket, going McLaren, Piastri, Norris is going to likely be a contrarian play within your league. Like, I don't think people are going to be running that lineup. So that might produce you some points, but you've got enough. It doesn't matter if you pick McLaren or Ferrari, you pick up Norris, and then you have plenty of budget to pick up a good talent driver selection. So you have Alonso, you have Gasly, you have Magnussen, then you have plenty of budget left over to pick up someone from the best of the rest. A Tsunoda, a Lawson, a Colapinto. So you're in a good spot.
You almost wonder if like hypothetical situation, if Max and Lando are battling up front and it's starting to get a little sketchy, do they get on the radio and tell Lando, like, don't fight it?
Just let Max
stay
go
behind him. Yeah.
Like, I would instantly say, let Max go. If they're on the front row, I let Max go. Second is fine. We are point racing if we're McLaren.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Next question, jamming out with a great format. I have total value of 128.5, available bank of 44.5, Sainz, Norris, Piastri, and Kick on the team, Verstappen, Gasly on lock. Thinking Leclerc and Hülkenberg, I'm in first by 272 points. Lots of things you can do. I mean, I think at this point with 272 points, you basically just need to cruise home and hope nothing crazy happens. I like Leclerc and Hulk. I also just like any combination of experience. I think you're really just you're holding on to position here. The only thing I would consider, and I'm not saying this is a bad choice because of it, is you're heavily weighted into McLaren. You have both McLaren drivers, and if you had Leclerc, you now have both Ferrari drivers. So it may not be a bad thing, but if you're trying to maybe just diversify and go for ensuring that you maintain a lead, that's something to consider. Otherwise, I can't push back much on Leclerc and Hülkenberg. I think that's a great addition to the lineup.
Yeah, I think that's a good spot.
I think if you're holding people off, like, I think McLaren and people in first place is like a perfect marriage, right? All you need is a high floor. You just don't want anything to screw up from there.
Yeah, I'll tell you the one driver I won't touch in the upper tier, Hamilton. Like, he was ready to quit last week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like, he's been mentally out of it for a while.
Michael, you said you weren't a fan of Russell going this weekend. Why not?
I would rather have Sainz or Verstappen. So Verstappen has a chance at a race win. I think Russell doesn't. I think Sainz has a pretty significant price difference relative to a one position difference in the final result. I think Russell's been doing a great job. I'm not a Russell hater by any means. He's outperformed Hamilton, pretty consistently all season on average. But I don't love the Mercedes cars at any Mercedes car with any driver at 27.1. It's the car is very unpredictable. The only prediction we've been able to make is that it performs well in cooler track temperatures, but even at cooler track temperatures, it makes it competitive to the Ferrari and the McLaren. It 27.1 for Russell, not in love. I'd rather have Verstappen. I'd rather take the savings, have Sainz, and have a Leclerc, Verstappen, Sainz lineup than have a Russell lineup right now.
Yeah, makes sense.
Russell probably did deserve better on Sunday.
Yeah.
The rough pit stop, he got stuck behind traffic. He lost his window, and then they put him arguably on the wrong tires when they brought him back in behind the safety car. He was pissed off about being on hards again, and I think he's probably right.
Yeah. The only time I wouldn't talk someone out of Russell is like they're doing a contrarian play and like it works with their budget and they have a decent lead. You know, then I would be like, all right, yeah, you go for it.
Next question, Christine Lyon, bank 39.95, team value 119.58. She currently has Leclerc, Verstappen, Gasly, and Albon locked out. Norris and Kick need one driver, one constructor with 40 million basically.
You're in a great spot for that team value. That's a good lineup.
Gasly, Verstappen, Leclerc.
Locked out a Kick.
I grab Piastri, and then I grab. Who can I afford?
What about Sainz?
One driver, one constructor. Okay, you could also grab Sainz. I think I like Piastri a little bit better than I like Sainz.
You could do Piastri Haas.
Yeah, Piastri Haas fits.
Piastri Haas fits. I like that. If with 119 million, Leclerc, Verstappen, Gasly, Albon, Piastri, Haas is a great team.
And it's like if Gasly is somehow looking bad on Friday, or if Albon is looking like an absolute disaster, or he crashes the car again, then don't be afraid to take a release fee and go somewhere else in that talent tier.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, pay every release fee you can if someone looks bad in practice. Don't roster anybody who isn't looking very good, because like we said, you can't roll over the budget.
Yeah. Emily P. Hi guys, looking to retake first place in my league. Currently 159 points behind in second.
The question is further down.
Yes, I just saw that. Total team value 127.5. I need one driver. 32.84 available. Currently have Leclerc, Sainz, Norris, Colapinto, and Williams. Leclerc and Sainz, Norris, Colapinto, and Williams. Need to replace one driver. Locked out of max. 159 points behind first.
I think we're definitely paying some drop fees.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I feel like Colapinto has not ended up being the...
I say we probably take Piastri. That was 32 million. We could either take Piastri or Russell and then ditch Colapinto and go for a lot of people. Like, there's a lot of reasonable choices in that talent tier, like with the money that you would have.
Yeah, I mean, you can get, did she have Hulkenberg yet?
No Hulk.
So you could have Leclerc, Sainz, Norris, Piastri. Leclerc, Sainz, Norris, Piastri.
Work.
Verstappen's locked 32. Out, right?
Yeah, no max.
Say that.
Yeah,
no max,
locked out of max. Yeah, you could do Piastri Hulk, or yeah, you could do Piastri Hulk. I also don't love Williams.
I was going to say I definitely don't want to be running Colapinto and Williams.
Yeah,
I might actually want to ditch Williams more than I want to ditch Colapinto.
Mm-hmm.
There's been rumors. There's been rumors about how many spare parts they may or may not have. And which actually makes Colapinto a risk, because there's precedent for Albon stealing a car after he breaks one.
I want to ditch Colapinto because that's her only driver that is talent driver eligible. I do not. I don't want to run Colapinto regardless, but especially not as talent driver.
Yeah, if we could make it fit, I'd also want to ditch Williams for Sauber if we can make it fit. I can't believe I'm saying I'd rather run Sauber, but here we are. Like, Williams has seriously regressed.
Yeah, but she's in the spot to do it. 159 points behind. That this is the time to run Sauber on a Hail Mary. Yeah.
I have to say, as a side note, William, I feel like you have pretty good F1 memory. This season has been, I think, some of the most fluctuation I've seen amongst constructor performance in a very long time, just across the board.
Yeah, we've seen movement at the top. It's been a while since we've seen, like, probably you have to go back to 2009, where like Braun won all the races and they didn't have money to develop the cars, so Red Bull overtook them, but there wasn't enough races for them to actually win the title.
Yeah.
Like, that's the closest thing that comes to mind for me. as far as the top. The bottom, I mean, Alpine had that freak double podium. Like I think Alpine is somewhat inflated by that wet race at Brazil.
Yeah.
But like they have gotten better. Like I don't think it's been as tremendous as the last couple weeks have looked, but
I wouldn't run. I would run Doohan. I wouldn't run Alpine this week.
yeah, I'm not touching Alpine as a
I'm
constructor.
not touching Alpine. I'm not touching Williams. Kick is interesting, and I would rather save the money and take a gamble on Kick than Racing Bulls. The points differentials isn't going to make sense. I would prefer to run Haas if I could, but I think Emily, I'm sorry, I'm jumping around your budget a lot, but we have. I definitely want you out of Colapinto and out of Williams.
And I'll make the case for the Racing Bull drivers. I'm not saying that's where I'd go with. They're both up for Checo's seat, so those guys are going to be doing their best to try and drive their way into that ride, for better or worse. Maybe that means they been at making a desperate move, or maybe they make a brilliant pass to snatch a few more points.
Yeah, Tsunoda trying to prove himself. What could possibly go wrong?
Yep.
Let's see. All right. Martin. Hello. I currently have Leclerc, Verstappen, Hulk as star driver. There's 47.2 million left in my bank, and I'm locked out of Sainz, Albon, and Haas. I need to make a risky play.
Love
did he
risky
respond
plays.
below about position or anything? He did not. Okay. So he wants to play with some risk. So we definitely need to put Doohan on there, right?
Well,
that's the high beta play this weekend for sure.
It is, but I would rather take it the safer route because he has Leclerc, Verstappen, and Hulk. He does not have a McLaren driver on his roster right now. So like
he doesn't have a constructor either.
Yeah, right. So you could go McLaren as constructor and get McLaren coverage there.
You can get McLaren coverage with McLaren constructor, but then that gives 20.3 left.
For two drivers or one?
Two drivers. And he needs...
Yes. So if you go Doohan, that takes... What was the total? 20?
Yeah. So that gives you 13.8 left. I don't love that.
I don't love that either.
Yeah, I think...
13.8 gets us... Oh, we can get Tsunoda, Zhou, Lawson, Bottas, Colapinto, Stroll, Albon.
Probably Tsunoda.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I wish we could get up to Magnussen, but it's probably Tsunoda at that range.
I mean, he's asking for a risky play, and we're giving a conservative answer. I don't.
Okay, then in that case, let's take Piastri, let's take Sauber, let's take Doohan.
Yeah.
Or let's take Checo.
Actually, Checo probably is the definition of risky play because he should be better than he is. Yeah, Checo never is better. Like he should be better than he is. Like all he has to do is put together an average race in a decent car.
Yeah, I mean that's how that's how I would say the risky play should probably be looked at. Is look at the teams with what we were talking about earlier, the 10 position spread between two drivers, and go with the lower priced driver. Yeah. I mean that gives you Perez, Stroll, Doohan are all in that position where they're in a car that's capable of much more. So if they have a single good race, then they're going to be, way undervalued, but for sure high risk.
Yeah, Checo talent driver might be the play if you are trying to throw a Hail Mary here, because I don't think anyone else is running him. You can't deny that the ceiling, maybe the ceiling's not high, but it should be high theoretically. It is still Checo, but
this car is winning races. Red Bull is basically a one-car team. We have an interesting constructors battle only because Red Bull is a one-car team.
Okay, so let's do some narrowing down. If you guys are making a contrarian play and your choice is a risky, let's just call it a risky play and probably contrarian, your choices are Perez or Stroll, right? Who do you think is, who are you betting on to finish closer to their teammate this weekend?
I'm not making that bet.
I mean, I'd say Perez in the sense that his car can score points. Mm-hmm. Stroll could finish close to his teammate, but that would happen because Alonso had a bad day as well.
Let's assume Verstappen and Alonso have a normal day.
So like max 1 or 2.
Yes, like who do you think
finishes like 9th? It's probably Stroll then, because
Yeah.
Because Stroll will be like 13th.
Yeah.
When Perez crashes on the formation lap, then yeah, which actually Stroll could do too. Maybe they'll both crash on the formation lap.
Into each other, maybe.
That's what I want to happen now.
Regretting asking this question.
We're way off the rails.
With 47.2 left, Leclerc, Verstappen, and Hulk, I think that's your non-risk play. Like Leclerc, this is how I would sum it up for you, Martin. Leclerc, Verstappen, Hulk, those are your safety bets, right? So with the rest of that money available, I'm looking at calculated risk, not just complete throwing things up in the air and hoping one sticks. So I'd be looking at a McLaren driver just to guarantee those points, but then I'd be taking a risk on the talent driver selection. You have Alonso, Hülkenberg, Gasly at the top of that. I'll throw Perez in there just on a Hail Mary just because. So I'd be looking at like Piastri and one of the top eligible talent drivers, but then look at your league adoption number and look at practice and see if you can make a play that no one else, very few people in your league is making. That to me is a risky play that I think it's still a smart play. You've got good points protection up top, but you're taking a gamble on your talent driver for double points that has low league adoption that could outscore everyone who everyone else is going with. So I would take a look at that. So yeah, I think we've helped you, Martin. Antonio says, is better a good construction team or top driver? It depends on the situation. On a sprint weekend, you're going to want a driver because drivers score sprint points, but this isn't a sprint weekend. But on average, a driver will outscore on average, a team could outscore a driver right now at this point of the season relative to the cost. So you do want to have a good constructor, but you can view like running McLaren or Ferrari. You could view that as not having a top driver spot. Like if I'm building a lineup and I take Ferrari or McLaren, I'm basically saying like, okay, I'm not going to be running a blue chip driver. I'm going to be running a driver a driver lineup more of midfielders. Hope that answers your question.
780 properties. Does sale matter?
We answered that one.
Oh, we did. Okay.
Yeah.
Chris Voice, team value 127, bank 1.1 million. We're laying off some contracts, I think. Have Verstappen, Norris, Leclerc, Gasly, Albon, and Red Bull locked. None. Question: lead league by 5 points, but behind 8 million in value. Ooh, that's tough. Anyone to cancel or swap? Well, at 1.1 million, I mean, the only part of that team I don't love is like Albon.
Yeah.
But and he probably the only one you could justifiably swap because he's at 7.1, so your cancellation fee on that's going to be, pretty tiny. But
then your only choices are Stroll and Doohan.
Yeah,
I don't like them any better than I do Albon.
Yeah.
Doohan's risky. I'd be looking, if I was in your position, I'd definitely be looking at my leaderboard and clicking on that first place and see who that guy had on his team for the last race. I mean, we obviously don't know which contracts were dropped, or at least you don't. We actually do.
And the other thing I'd point out would be like, keep an eye on practice. If Gasly looks bad, be prepared to move on from Gasly and look elsewhere in that tier. If Gasly looks bad.
Mm-hmm.
Or if he ends up losing an engine and taking a penalty.
Verstappen, Norris, Leclerc. I mean, that is a strong top.
Yeah, your other drivers are good. Your constructor's okay. Like your constructor is Red Bull.
Yeah.
You can't move up. You don't have the money to move up on Red Bull. But like Red Bull seems fine, even if they are a one-car team.
Yeah, I mean, even if you drop like.
Yeah, I can't think of any drops that would pivot into something that's better.
Yeah, I mean, you got Gasly. I think is a great talent option.
I have in another league that I'm in. I have basically this exact same lineup. I wouldn't make any changes unless something shows up in practice that I don't like. Then, and I agree with William. Like, I would be looking at like unless someone big is not looking good. Like if Leclerc is looking horrible, right? That's a lot of money to have locked up, 28.7. So I'm not worried about that drop fee of like close to $1 million if I can pick up someone else. Like if I'm totally wrong and Russell's crushing it and Leclerc isn't, I'm paying the Leclerc drop fee to pick up Russell. You know, that's the risk I would take for in that example with 5-point lead.
Yeah, like all things being equal, I'm just hoping that I hold.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think Williams' advice is smart too. You just gotta. I think that you need to really pay close attention to practice races or practice events this weekend, and maybe make any final calls there. But I think more or less you're probably just holding on for dear life.
That's what it came to for me last year. Like I was slightly behind last year. I looked at practice and I made a decision to cut somebody, and it worked out.
Jez Taylor with a humble brag, 759-point lead in our league. I'm leaving in Verstappen, Russell, Sainz, Hulk, Colapinto, and Aston Martin. Is the league mine?
Well, I mean, the minimum is 650.
Yeah.
So the only way you lose is if somebody puts up 1400. I have not done the math. I'm not sure that's mathematically possible in our game. Congratulations.
It's like the Alex Trebek, the Jeopardy skit. It's like set a lineup, any lineup, and you win.
Yeah,
like just set a lineup and you win.
Yeah, I think low 1300s is the highest I've ever seen.
Emily P, we already answered this one. There's a second.
Yes, yeah, we jumped down to
Yeah.
that one.
Anrox, Sainz, Norris, Gasly, Yuki. Need one driver and one constructor with 38.5. Locked out of Max Williams. 47 points behind P1. Oof. That is a close
tight
one.
Races.
Jeez. 47
Norris,
points. You
Gasly.
can make that up.
So
That
do we
is,
want to go big on constructor or do we want to go big on driver?
Well, obviously no sprint points on the line. So you could, so she got Sainz, Norris, Gasly. That's a pretty diverse lineup, not overly invested anywhere. So
Like McLaren or Ferrari constructor and then whatever talent driver we like? Or do we want to go for like a Sainz or Piastri?
She already has Sainz.
Has Sainz.
Already has Sainz. So do we want to go for Piastri and double up on McLaren? And then go for cheap constructor?
Locked out of Max. So she could 38. Leclerc would leave her with 10, almost 9.8. She went.
And then you're running Williams, which is unfortunate.
Yep.
Like if you go McLaren, you have some flexibility at the bottom. Like you could choose between a Racing Bulls driver or a Sauber driver.
Yeah, but I still don't like. If he went McLaren or Ferrari, his top 3-point scorers would be Norris, constructor, Sainz, Gasly, Yuki. And then still needs another driver who would be kind of a on the bottom end. For some reason, I don't love it.
Yeah,
I also don't think you need a. You don't.
This is also going to be very practice session dependent.
Yeah, like we may not want Gasly after Friday.
Yeah, we may not want Gasly after Friday.
It's kind of a shame we don't do a show after final practice like we did with the first race of the year. That would be way too early. I'm not actually suggesting that.
Yeah.
What's left? What's left if they sign Kick?
If they sign
20, that'll leave them with 19.8. Is that right?
That's such a dead zone for looking at a driver.
Yeah. 19.8. Like then, like if you want to have a top driver, we have to cut Gasly and like drop way down.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one's tough to answer right now. I think because of the proximity, 47 points. I think this is really, you're gonna have to watch practice. And I think the two people I'm paying most attention to are Gasly and Yuki to see if one of those drops. For the sake of this conversation, maybe we just assume they don't. Let's say they both have great practices. I mean, I really think like
if I want to maximize my ceiling as well, there is consideration to your drivers being from 5 different teams.
Mm-hmm.
If you have drivers from 5 different teams, they can all score teammate points.
Yeah, it's true.
It's sort of an edge case.
Yeah. I'll say this, Anthrax. If you go Haas, you're very, very close to getting Piastri. So if you go Haas, then you're still short from picking up Piastri, but then I would consider practice for Gasly or Yuki for a drop and a swap. But if you do the drop and a swap, keep in mind Hulk Piastri in your budget. So this way, if you had Hulk Piastri and then ended up going dropping Yuki for someone just a little bit lower than that because it's looking like a better value, just keep in mind that might get you Piastri. And I like that lineup a little bit more because then you'd have Sainz, Norris. Say you keep Gasly, then you also have Haas, which is a good place to park that money, and then you could pick up someone around Yuki's price. So I don't not love that. So that'd be my advice. Also, I think Anthrox is a Discord player. So
yeah.
So
I'm sure they'll have lots of opinions. Join our Discord if you haven't already.
Yeah. So we can keep discussing this in Discord as the week goes on. All right. We got a couple more here.
Let's see.
I think we're at Mike.
Yeah, Mike's up next. Leclerc, Verstappen, Norris, 45.3 in the bank, locked out of Piastri, Tsunoda, Williams. Wants to play safe to protect second place versus out of reach. How safe do we want to go? And your safe picks here, 45.3. You're probably looking at like a Sainz and Sainz is how much? 24.6.
Yeah, Leclerc, Verstappen, Norris is a great start to playing it safe. Those are, I think, all pretty high floor drivers.
Yes, but there's not enough money to run a top constructor.
Yeah, like maybe we don't do Sainz. Maybe we do a couple of talent drivers and a top constructor.
Yeah, it's either go Sainz or go top constructor, and then the stressful part of picking out a bunch of cheaper drivers. Yeah. If he wants to play it safe, though, like when you said play it safe, that made me think go higher price constructor.
Yeah.
Like and don't take a risk on talent driver.
Don't. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so and it's just as well that you're locked out of Williams because I really don't want Williams if you want to play it safe.
Yeah.
So they've crashed like 12 cars this year. Like I was reading the other day, like they're literally using up their cost cap fixing up cars.
Yeah, it's been brutal.
Colapinto's had more crashes than Sargent now.
Stop. Are you serious?
I'm serious.
I didn't think
Granted, two of them were in the wet at Brazil, but still.
How do you feel about that, Ryan? It's got to make you feel good. President of the Logan Sargent fan club.
It does make me feel good.
Let's see. Are we done on this one? Are we moving on? Do we get an answer?
Let's see if he has any follow-ups.
Okay.
I don't see anything down.
Jez Taylor says, last week I gained 2.3 million or something, but it didn't tally up on my bank. Well, if you think there's a technical issue, email support. I highly doubt it. What's more likely is that the contracts that gain value just didn't release. I mean, your team can gain value, but if the contracts aren't releasing, that money doesn't go back into the banks. That's probably what happened.
Yeah, support at GridRival.com. Tell us your team name, tell us your league name, and we could look into it if you think that there's an issue.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if they had Ocon.
Let's see. Grayson. And we got about 11 minutes left, folks. So anybody that's got a last minute question out, now's the time to get it in. Grayson Holter asked, I've got Leclerc, Verstappen, Piastri, Hülkenberg, Albon, and Haas. 1.7 in the bank. Should I cut anyone? Could possibly get Norris instead of Piastri? ? Did he tell us where are you at, Grayson, in your league? What position are you in? How many points are you behind? Who's ever ahead?
Norris is slightly better than Piastri. I'm assuming that we just want maximum points here. Like I think Norris is slightly better than Piastri. That said, I mean, if we have 1.7 million, can we do better than Albon?
I mean, Norris better than Piastri, but he's gonna have to pay $750,000 to drop Piastri.
Well, yeah, there's no tomorrow though.
Yeah, it's true.
But I also don't hate this strategy at all for having Albon as your cheap driver. If he actually is able to, return to form, it works out great. If he stays at the bottom of the field, he's 7.1 million for something like 90 points. It's still like a good place to park money, as long as he finishes the race. Like if he DNF super early, it's not great. But yeah, if you could swap Norris for Piastri, you can consider it. But like, you're in a good spot. We need more information of like who you're competing against if we want to take any more additional risk and do drop fees.
Am I in a storage facility? No, I'm in a basement. And some of these things I guess will become Christmas presents behind me. Visiting family up in New York for a little bit. So yeah, that's where I am. I'm in New York this week.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Alonso or Aston is Antonio's question. Alonso or Aston? Well, Alonso or Aston, well, what's your alternative? Like if you go Alonso, who's your constructor? If you go Aston, don't do that. Who's your driver? Unless your driver is going to be way better than Alonso, then maybe Aston. But I don't like Aston.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like if I'm making the,
I'd rather have Sauber.
I feel like if I'm making the trade-off right now between a driver and a constructor, I'm not going to sign one where the constructor has a 10-place gap. I think Red Bull and Aston specifically, and then I think Alpine's a little bit more of a wild card because we really don't know how Doohan's going to perform in that car. But yeah, I mean to William's point, obviously depends on what your other options are. But I think like without any other information, I think I'd be probably investing in Alonso and trying to grab most likely a less expensive constructor. Maybe
at that point, you're probably it's like Sauber or Williams.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you take Aston, then you have Stroll exposure, and I'm trying to limit my Stroll exposure to 0 Stroll exposure.
We're parking the stroller coaster.
Stroller coaster's parked, man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Dustin, have you guys ever considered or talked about implementing F2 on GridRival? Definitely talked about it, definitely considered it. Probably a lot more priorities, honestly, before then. I think IndyCar's something that you might end up seeing on GridRival next season. I think as far as the season-long game, I'd say that F2 is probably pretty far down on the list. Now, if you happen to be in the United States, I think what's more likely is you could see F2 on our picks game at some point in the future where you can play with real money. But even that's probably, I don't know, a year out.
Formula 2 is also a bit of a game management headache. Like you thought it was bad this year with F1 with the mid-season driver changes.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a thing that happens a lot more in the junior ranks as people run out of money.
Yeah,
because like a lot of those guys are paid drivers.
And generally speaking, with the contract style game, we it's very possible we may add another type of game in the future that doesn't have contracts. But the contract game, to William's point, in any series where there's so much driver swapping, can get a little bit out of sorts.
All right, so yeah, Dustin is not catching first, 278 ahead of third, 295 ahead of fourth. So yeah, this is already going to be a safety lineup.
Yeah.
113 in the bank, Norris, Piastri, Albon, Hulk, Sainz, and Haas. No lockout. This probably keeps you in second.
Yeah, 300 points is like 278 and 300. It's like nearest makes no difference. Like that's a big jump for someone to make in one week to go ahead of you. And with your lineup, I wouldn't be overly concerned. You got Norris, Piastri, Sainz on your top scorers. Haas should do well. Hulk is a talent
all I'll
driver.
say,
Yeah,
like if you want to be really paranoid, instead of carrying both Hulk and Haas, I probably swap one of those for a different team. That way, like I don't get burned by disqualification.
Yeah.
Or some kind of a freak DNS. Like that's really your downside at this point. If like somehow Hulkenberg doesn't start the race or he gets disqualified, like then you're getting a 0 on both sides.
Yeah, but even with 300 points, there's decent protection on a DNS.
True, but like, if we're talking paranoid, if we're talking like just don't screw this up and lock in second place.
Yeah.
That's like that's the question I'm asked. So that's
yeah.
Like if you want the optimization, but yeah, this is very likely to be fine as well.
Yep, diversify to raise the floor.
Yeah.
Let's see. Chris K, 35, 5, 6 to spend. Have Verstappen, Sainz, and Norris locked out of Albon, Alonso, and Williams. Need 2 drivers and a constructor. While you guys are thinking about that, I will answer a question below from Chris Voice. An unrelated note confirming you can't see another league player's historical team picks apart from the last race. That is correct as of today. You can only see their most recent scores. 35-5, 2 drivers and a constructor. Albon, Alonso, and Williams are locked.
Yeah.
So
If you need to see the lineup of the person ahead of you, my Venmo is open, and we can go in and get that over to you.
And so I like your drivers, Chris, that you have now. We're definitely bargain hunting on the other side. Like we're probably looking at Sauber as the constructor. Like they're probably the best between them and Williams.
That's what I put. That's
So it's-
24.86
yeah.
left.
24-8, and then we could do Doohan and Hulk.
I like that's where I was going.
And
Is I think
Doohan could become like Albon or Stroll or Colapinto or Bottas. I think. Like, don't hold me to that. I've already forgotten the 20-something number, but
24.86.
24-8. So like we could do Hulk. That would get us to
You could go
9-something.
Yeah, then you have Bottas and below. So
Yeah,
you
Bottas
have,
and below, and I like Bottas the best, probably. Maybe Doohan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't trust Williams. That's my problem. If I could trust Williams to not be terrible, like then they're the obvious choice. But look at Friday.
Yeah.
A lot of this is going to, like in the talent tier, a lot of this is going to be see what happens on Friday.
Yeah, I think so very much. I think we got time for one more. Last race or last question of the season, maybe to Tom Petrella. Second place in my league, back 140 points. That's a closable gap. It's a tough gap to close. I think it's on the verge. It might be tough, but it's definitely possible. I have Max, Oscar, Hulkenberg, and Sainz. It's a good top team. 23 in the bank. I need a constructor and one driver locked out of Albon and RB. So how do you make up 140 points? I think that you have to have Doohan. I mean, you have to have Doohan and hope that he has a good race. Because that leaves you with, what is that?
So constructor wise, I was going to start from the constructor.
Yeah, you need to start from the constructor.
So if I take Sauber, that would give me 12.4 left if I took Sauber.
Mm-hmm.
And then driver is everybody Sonoda and below.
Yeah.
Sauber Sonoda is not a bad double up.
I feel like to make up points though, 140 points is for sure closable, but he have a rock star event, and the person he's up against has to have a poor one.
Well, yeah, like you need to have a substantially different lineup than the other guy.
Right.
And it's hard to know that you're going to have a substantially different lineup, and you're going to have to hope to have a good day.
Yeah.
And they have like maybe he's running Norris and he gets a penalty.
Yeah. 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 That's the way I would go. I would go Sauber and then possibly Sonoda. You might have to consider a drop based on practice to really be sure about that 140. But it's you don't have much room. The only other thing I was going to say is just if you're going to drop, look at swapping Piastri for Norris. You're trying to maximize points. The price difference is a couple $100,000, so that's what I'd be looking at is a swap for those two.
Got one more question. One more minute left in the show. From Jeff Newman, 52 million to spend. Norris, Piastri, Colapinto already. Sonoda and Leclerc locked. 2 drivers, 1 constructor.
Ferrari and a couple talent drivers, or Sainz and Sauber and a talent driver.
I like Ferrari.
I like Ferrari and a couple talent drivers because again, you need to make a high beta play at the end of this season. Something that's high risk, high reward. Again, we don't know where you're at in your league, but I think we'll leave it at that since we're out of time.
What a year it's been.
As a closing thought, reminder: watch practice. This event more than others, I think, is really, really critical to watch the practice events. And got a couple thank yous from folks, and we will end the season with a thank you to all of you. It has been a great pleasure to be able to join these every weekend. We've had a lot of fun. I think it's helped us with our own fantasy lineups. But we really appreciate the dedication that everybody's had making it through this whole season. This game does not grow without you guys using it, sharing it. So we really appreciate everybody. And to continue helping and support us, the best thing you could do is come back next year, join a league, and invite all your friends and spread the word. So we're really glad to have you. We are excited for the summer or for the winter break to work on many new things that we're going to be releasing at the start of next season. So we hope everybody has an awesome close at Abu Dhabi, and we look forward to seeing everybody after the increasingly short winter break. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
See ya.
Bye.
And we are done. Well, let me stop it here.